So it's a pleasure to introduce the last panel of today's rich program, and I'm very happy to introduce this very interesting theme, rethinking food systems in the MEM region. This is an amazingly forward-looking theme as well, and I would like to welcome on screen today with Skype, because we know that we're in a hybrid format today, Marie-Laure Corredor. She's the head of Global Program Food Security at the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation here in Switzerland. So, bienvenue, Marie-Laure.
Thank you.
The next panelist is Giorgio Marrapodi. He's the Director General for Development Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in Italy. Benvenuto.
Grazie. Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me.
Very warm welcome to Pio van Obst, the Ambassador at the Permanent Mission of Switzerland to the United Nations Organization in Rome. Welcome to Lugano.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
All the way from Iran, we have the young changemaker Amin Emadi. So happy to have you here. You had a long week with the seminar with all the other changemakers here in Lugano. So happy to have you on stage. And the chairman of this last panel of the day is Emiliano Albanese. He's professor at the Università della Svizzera Italiana. Warm welcome, and please launch this panel.
So very good afternoon for myself as well, and it's a pleasure to be in person with two panelists and virtually with two more panelists, and I think that this facility having big screens is making them even more visible to myself as well, so it's going to be very interactive. And I think that even though they say all the times that the last is not the least of the panel, I think that food systems and policies in general are so much across the board when we talk about politics, cultures, and many other aspects, including health. So as a professor of public health, I've been working in public health that touches also public health, nutrition. But I think that what we want to discuss here today with these distinguished panelists is a broader perspective, which is not just cultural. And I will, without any further ado, I will start with a question to Dr. Marrapodi. We'll start from an Italian perspective, because I would like Dr. Marrapodi to help us set a little bit of the stage, because we are in the middle of an extremely interesting process with the United Nations Summit due in a few weeks from now, which has been though preceded by a pre-summit. So I think that my question is, why does a UN summit on food systems require a pre-summit, which was held at the end of July in Rome, in I think a very hot weather and probably environment? So what happened in Rome? Why did you need a pre-summit?
Thank you, Professor Albanese. Thank you for this question. But let me first say that it was an incredible, huge effort on our side to organize this pre-summit jointly with, of course, with the team of the Special Envoy, Mrs. Kalibata, and with the friends and colleagues of FAO. The role of Italy. Let me start from there. As you mentioned in the preparation of the summit, I think we have been a steady steering partner because of our deep involvement in food security through the Italian Development Cooperation. We worked with the United Nations to make sure that the summit would not only be a moment of declarations, but a process which would bring into focus the complexity of production systems, the need to adapt them to the challenges of our times. An appointment that could benefit from the analysis and which would highlight those systems and values that the Italian food system and culture embody. In order to achieve this goal, an intermediate stage was necessary, we think, and we thought that could not be a better place than Italy. Let me say that. But I mean, it's not only for because of the culture and tradition and all the efforts that we traditionally put in the food subject, but also because Rome is the place of the Rome-based agencies. So it's sort of the natural place where to prepare the work, the final summit. And I believe that the pre-summit demonstrated all this and actually achieved the goal. And now there is a list of action, the call to actions, a list of coalitions. And I think that from there to September, the 23rd of September, as it was announced, we can advance with more awareness and also with a conviction that there is no predefined path. There is there is no package of easy and prompt remedies, but there is there should be a set of solutions which can improve our approach to food systems, taking inspiration from what already works. And this has been a subject that we have discussed also in these days. I'm connected with you from Rimini, maybe you know this is the 41st year of the meeting of Rimini, the meeting of peoples, and the subject of food security and the changing food system was central also here really in these days.
Well, thank you very much. And to me, I just wanted also to move back a little bit to a few definitions. So with the health system, we essentially mean all activities, actors, resources, all that we do in society, but also at an individual level to produce, process, distribute, and eventually consume food. But I think that because we are in the SDGs era, and that is essentially a common set of goals, 17 in total, across the board, we can focus about probably food and hunger in goal 2, and of course health in goal 3, which pertains particularly myself. But we have been taught, and we tell people that interactions across all goals is much more important than focusing on targets on a specific goal. So we are not working individually on these goals. I think that food systems are essentially one that most people would recognize. And the summit, the UN summit in New York is actually a people summit. It's participated by all sorts of constituencies from civil society and also at an individual basis, which I think is because this is a topic that everybody understands that is really across the board. But I think that I would like to ask to Pio what we mean with the concept of transformation of health systems.
Transformation of health systems or food systems or both?
Food systems.
Let's put both. Anyway, they are so much interlinked because actually food systems and determinants, including social determinants of health, are so much related. And this basically takes me to indicate one of the reasons why we've been supporting for 4 years in a row with the thematic approaches, the MEM, is simply to make sure that the young change makers that are here present, they made all the journey here, they see that there is a way to start tackling the issues that are being described this morning, like the ones from the minister, the Excellency Minister of Foreign Affairs of Oman, that was talking about social equity, and was talking about peace. The peace needs to go through social equity, but then still this is difficult. And then the point is that why not link in with some specific thematic approaches that are showing you that actually you can start working on something very concrete in order to move towards this famous social equity in relation also to sustainable businesses and so on and so on. We did once with Blue Peas, which was transboundary water management, followed by exactly discussion on determinants of health, including the social one. Because behind what you're saying is a cost. When we're talking now in the food system, there's something maybe you're going to talk about, I don't know, but we are discussing a lot about the true costs of food. No? And usually we think about climate change and the costs of 0 kilometers and so on. Right? What about the true values? What about the fact that you are spending much less money in health systems that have to respond to health-related issues that are caused by the improper, or if you want, not making the best out of the food in terms of determinants of health. You could imagine that you could have a value there that leads also even to reduce the cost of the health system. So the linkage is there, of course. Therefore, yes, SDG 3, SDG 12, sustainable consumption and production. But let me just bring a message to the young ones, because they came on purpose here. Somebody asked me why being here, and I asked also why being here. You know, a little bit from maybe from a philosophical aspect, I think that between 25 and 35 years, it's your age more or less that you're participating here, this is a time where you are fixing your age. It's a time where you're becoming old or you're going to stay young forever. And the young forever comes with hope, comes with the possibilities of having something to share, something in common, where you want to build something together, even though it's difficult, acknowledging that there is a lot of things where there is, here we agree to disagree, but find this seed, talking about food, that makes the basis of some kind of first maybe discussion, then maybe some projects, some activities are going together. This is the reason why we brought the food system, which is a UN discussion, very strong discussion today, but actually it's very strong related to the future of the whole region. Because of course behind the food and food production and consumption there is the uses of resources, water scarcity. You made on Saturday, I mean, the issue, the very strong point about something that all the region has in common, scarcity of water. Instead of trying to find a national way to food security, by simply indicating food sovereignty, why not start talking how can we in the region work together in order to make sustainable production and consumption in the region that includes also the proper use of resources like water and tackles inequalities and therefore social determinants of health. I don't know if I answered a little bit to your question, but at least I'm trying to go in this direction.
But yeah, no, thank you very much, because this is really the spirit of the panel, that we bring in into the debate, not just all my questions, but through your answers, important topics. And food security is a central topic in the SDG. Of course, in SDG 2, it's expressly mentioned. So I wanted to ask to Marie-Laure Crétat, who's following us remotely, that in some ways, the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, had an obvious impact on food systems. But did it also unveil or highlighted criticisms and problems and challenges that were pending and that became prominent on a global scale? Because the pandemic is global by definition. So that all countries may be seen as developing countries when it goes into food systems. What do you think, Madame Crétat? Can you give us a perspective from your viewpoint, which is a special one?
Yeah, I think from a Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, and in particular our global program Food Security, we've been looking at the whole situation now for a few months, seeing actually deterioration of the condition, and definitely there is a need for more resilience strengthening. And this is a usual approach we have in many regions in the world, and especially, I would say, also in the MENA region. So when we speak about resilience, it's reducing the vulnerability of population, but also of ecosystem. And there are different modalities to work on that. And I think there is now a strong call to work more in a nexus approach. What is a nexus approach is that you are able at the same time to look at long-term development issues and being able to answer with a more type of emergency response. And how do you do that? You need actually to have a kind of different institutional setup. You need to have your staff being ready to step into a new ways of working quite rapidly. And actually, our direction is currently going through a reorganization, And part of the objective is actually to have this nexus being stronger. And there we see also the necessity to have this systemic approach going beyond food, and as you just mentioned in the previous point, to look at the not only health and food, but I would say the whole economic dimension and what is required for that. Within the Switzerland strategy for the coming years, we speak about the 4 Ps: prosperity, planet, people, and peace. And actually, you need to tackle all these issues at the same time. And definitely, we've just discussing last week with other colleagues that the biomedical response to COVID is a part of the response, but can't be the only one. And we see with a lot of concern that actually a food insecurity crisis is now happening, and it's a direct consequences of the COVID-19, but definitely also of the whole economic distress.
Well, thank you very much. And 4 Ps, a 5th P, the perspective, the young change maker. Did you debate, amongst you? Can you summarize a little bit of what emerged? And did you touch upon last Sunday, for instance, where you're highly interactive, also food systems from the region, which is highly diverse? We're talking about hundreds of millions of populations across a highly diverse geographically and cultural environment that is, from many perspectives, and your perspective as a young change maker, I think interesting to hear if anything emerged during your interactions last Sunday.
Of course. Well, I would like to basically, yes, project what we have discussed, but also to remind that I'm also talking on behalf of another movement, Bites of Transfoodmation, but also being a member of the MEM Summer Summit. And actually, in our discussions yesterday, which was very interesting for all of us, we talked about the topic of identity. And we all were agreeing that it's, of course, better to talk about what unifies us rather than what divides us from each other. So, speaking about the reality of our region, I would like to focus on what unifies us that is relevant to our food systems and how we can build hope in it if we all work together, hand in hand, and be unified. So it's quite interesting that if we go under the label of our countries, we might be very divided, but only just changing the name of MEM, having Middle Eastern and Mediterranean Summit, we are all in one region. So it's really tricky to basically not to lose our identity, or it's also upon us to choose what identity we want to pick. So we all, in our countries, the major productions maybe would be, the countries that we have with major production that we have is agriculture. But what unifies us is, what things that can unify us could be the climate, the water scarcity, as Pio mentioned, that we have in the region, and also the diet, the type of food. We have many similarities, not only in our language, in our culture, but also in our food culture in the region. So this also means that we have the same habits, we have the same behavior in food consumption and food production, which needs to change because the climate is changing, the population is growing. Of course, we understand this, but what unifies us is also these conflicts that we have to come up with a unifying solution as well. So coming up with new narratives and advocating those new narratives in our own countries. And just as I mentioned in the past about the identity problem, we kind of all came together, we had this emotional conversations that we really wish that there was no barriers, there was no barriers that there was an option that we could tear down these barriers and unify and just become one territory rather than being one country. For instance, like the concept of EU, that you can travel to different countries without any barrier, without any need to show a passport or something. So we know that we do have this potential. So this is, again, another thing that unifies us is our identity problem, identity case, let's say, crisis that we have. And we have to define our habitats in a new way by committing to make a new social change, also related to the food systems, like the diversity of food systems. Diversity of food systems is not only about food. When we are talking about food systems, it of course includes the people who are active in these food systems. So we need to understand the current realities that we have, and we need to adapt to those. And this includes changing the food that we produce, changing the food that we consume by recognizing the current situation of the current crisis that we have in the region, mostly because of the climate, which is again a main driver of other political issues that we have in the region. And then I wanted to talk about the role of youth, which is us, that we are here in the MEM Summit, that regardless of any conflicts that is between our countries, we found this space here to all come together and share all the things that we have in common, everything that unifies us. And what we can do, how we can magnify this, is to go back to our countries, go back to our people, to start raising awareness about this and explain to people that why we need to renew our traditions, why we need to make shifts in our cultures, in our consumption cultures, in our production cultures, to have a more sustainable food future in the food systems. And another thing that unifies us is that we have a lot of intelligence. We all know that in the region. We have immigration of brains, intelligence, going all abroad, if not all. Half of the, let's say, half of the United States or Europe is now built upon with the help of the immigrants that are coming from our region. So why not investing on the same capacities that we have in our countries? Of course, we don't have this space at the moment, but we have to do that, and we can do that even faster than before by the help of digitalization and knowledge, which we do need this help and support, of course, by coming together and complementing each other. And I will just be quick, sorry. And about the culture and our learning, so we know that we have a rich culture, and this is a very strong resource that we can rely on to basically to reduce some inefficiencies that we have in our food systems in terms of the true value and the affordability of food. We know we have a strong culture of not wasting food, but maybe in the new generations, some of them is getting forgotten, but by remembering ourselves, by becoming conscious, we can bring those back, bring those habits back. And to finish, what I just would like a sort of statement that I made is that what unifies us again at the end is that today we know that our region is today's region of conflict, but let's not forget that our region was the place of the first settlements of human beings that created the new way of doing agriculture, and we are the region who defined food security. So we can definitely go back there by coming together, by being unified again. That was what I wanted to share.
Well, thank you very much. I think I let you speak because I think that you are speaking on behalf and for many people. And it's extremely interesting for us to have this contribution. But Dr. Marapodi, what unifies the region is, of course, a diet, which has a variety of staple foods, and we call it the Mediterranean diet. However, why did not emerge in the pre-summit a recognition, an official recognition that the Mediterranean diet is a healthy dietary pattern with a great deal of scientific evidence, but most of all, a long tradition of healthy societies that stem out for this diet, and not just from a nutritional point of view. So what happened there?
I don't know. I think you are trying to be provocative. Well, of course, I'm a great supporter of the Mediterranean diet. But it is important in a multilateral system to involve the largest number of participants and to reach a consensus. So there should be common principle on which you can involve really everybody. So I think that changes only happen if they are done together. This does not mean that we have forgotten the Mediterranean diet and the other traditional diets in coalitions, in the coalitions which were approved in Rome at the end of July. We have rather concentrated on more general issues, but if you look closely, I would say that the Mediterranean diet emerged in a sort of in an horizontal way in all decisions that have been taken in Rome. What we say, and I think that we have demonstrated for years, is not only in Italy but in the whole area of the Mediterranean, is that our way of eating is a diet anchored to the culture and the needs of the population, which has had centuries to refine and adapting to circumstances which are the ones that can respond to the need for a balanced nutrition for adults and children. By harvesting what the earth and the sea offer us, but in a sustainable way. The Mediterranean diet is a diet which can avoid waste, can guarantee decent work, and of course this cannot be done without constant updating of technology and financial resources. So the approach that we have taken in Rome is that we don't want to contrast the application of technology to agriculture, to the rural system, but of course what we have tried to underline, and I think that it's really emerging from the old discussion, is that we should take into account not only the Mediterranean diet, but all the tradition of local food, because in the local tradition, I think that there are centuries and centuries of wisdom. Of course, we should not only look at the past, and we should not look at the present, but we should look at the future, having in mind what we have learned from the past and the way we are living in the present.
Well, thank you very much. I think so. It's a partial win. I think it's a recognition that Mediterranean diet may not be named, but it's definitely there culturally. So I think that Ambassador Van Wooster, it's important because all the panelists here have been involved in a project which has been named. So we want to hear more about these Bites of Transfoodmation. But I think that what I would like to highlight is what has emerged in the very many instances of interactions of the project from the bottom, from the field participation, and what it means to be transformative through a project that is highly inclusive and that, of course, involved Switzerland and Italy particularly, but many, many also who are here.
Thank you. Actually, the best one entitled to speak about the results of the project up to now, Bites of Transformation, will be Amin. But what I can say, how the journey started we started with Switzerland and Italy, and it started actually exactly by, I think, somehow by Switzerland joining the group of friends of a Mediterranean diet, being us an alpine country, we could say the alpine diet. But at the end, what we'll be underlining is a system that is really linking the way you have family farmers that are busy in Switzerland. The connectivity between the rural and urban is very strong. So you have to take into consideration when you are producing, you have to take into consideration that you are near urban settlements. So you have to consider from the very beginning the sustainable use of resources, whether we had just a vote on pesticides. Some people can see it as something negative or positive, but the mere fact that we were discussing and voting on certain issues, all the population, this means there is a debate and there is a link between rural and urban. That is one of the main issues that came out from the project Bites of Transfoodmation. So the journey started like this together. First, the beginning, a couple of countries, and it enlarged immediately with the discussion with the organizer of the MEM, with the region, with the Middle East Mediterranean region, and then again it started to be larger and larger. And then now we have Latin Americans, we have Asian, we have every young ones that is actually looking for kind of a vision. Because at the end, what the young ones came up with this manifesto that has been, by the way, translated in, I don't know, 37 or 40 languages by themselves, with no financial support whatsoever. It's basically a vision that came from projecting yourself into a future. So exactly, take into consideration you have health issues that now are clearer. You have urbanization, population dynamics, you have climate change, and so on. If it's not too difficult to project, man, you can project yourself in a negative manner, very easy. Everyone is doing it today. We'll be dead soon. But use this information instead of projecting yourself to create your own future, the future. But you need a start. How can you talk about something unifying if you don't have a common vision? Unifying is a very nice word, but if you don't have a common vision, you are not going to be unified in nothing, and particularly in food systems, because food systems are divisive.
I think, thank you very much. We'll come back to the manifesto in a moment, but very quickly, Madame Greta, I would like you to talk a little bit about unifying the approaches that we have in food systems, humanitarian and cooperation approach. Can you tell us what is the divide and why that may be problematic?
Well, as I was mentioning earlier on, you have different modalities, ways of tackling these issues, and a bit different silos in how you do it. And definitely, we need to unify that and look at the same time, basically, at the causes of the issue and the answer. And we have some interesting example, for instance, in Lebanon, where we had to deal with an issue on water management, and at the same time you work on the integrated water resources management and governance in a situation where you have a host communities and refugees, and actually you take the different stakeholders together and find a solution which is a solution for all. And for that, you need some specialists that have different skills, and at the same time, you will address the cause, you will give an answer and access to water to many people, and at the same time, you contribute also some peace-building activities. I think this unifying approach is feasible, but needs to be now a bit more mainstream, probably in many of our interventions.
Well, thank you very much. I think that the manifesto was aimed, so I mean, I would like you to we're nearing the conclusion of this very interesting panel. So not just what is the key message in a nutshell of the manifesto, but to whom is this message addressed? Who are we talking to? Who are you talking to with the manifesto translated now in 27 languages all over the world?
Sure. So the manifesto comes as a commitment, and it starts from every individual ourselves. And it's a commitment from us to first commit to all of the chapters in the manifesto. And then if you believe in that, and if you know you are surrounded by the like-minded people, start to share this and raise awareness and find your community, create your community with this manifesto for this movement that you want to have forward. And can I just make a comment on, let's say, for instance, a humanitarian, just very quick. So we also shared, because this was something that came upon our discussions and conversations about the humanitarian aid, especially in the region. So we thought that maybe the current way of humanitarian aid is not the most sustainable and maybe the not best that is suitable for this region, because what we are seeing nowadays is that the end product, which is only the food, is just being provided as a humanitarian aid for dealing with food security issues, while investing on infrastructure for food security, for food systems is better, because currently maybe some of the humanitarian aid that is coming to these countries is not really solving the problem, although it can be even damaging the health of the people because it's coming from a different context to this region. So it has to be built upon from a bottom-up approach with proper infrastructures in the region. So this would be maybe a more efficient way to invest. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think so. We're getting to the end of the panel, and I think that what I would like to encourage everybody to do is these days we can Google anything. I just wanted to be a bit more specific about the Bites of Transfoodmation, because I think that in the name, when you Google it, you will see the key message of this fantastic endeavor and project. Because I think that we named the summit at the very beginning of this panel